Welcome to Read Your Comics. Today, looking at Ninjak #1. Before I get started, let me just say thank you to all the subscribers. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit like and subscribe if you're enjoying this content. Let's dive into 1993 again. This time we're going Valiant with the number 129th top-selling book of 1993. At this point, Valiant, Jim Shooter was gone, and Valiant was all into these gimmick covers. So we got a nice wraparound chrome cover. Turok, of course. Well, this whole chrome thing got started with Bloodshot #1, but it was just a plate on the front. And then Turok had to take it up a notch by not only doing the plate, but also had like an embossed around the side and foil in the logo. And then Exo Manowar #1 was the first one to have this like fully just wrapped around chrome cover. And then Valiant would just be like, you know what? That's awesome. Let's just keep doing it again and again. They did it for Ninjak #1. They'll do it for Bloodshot 0, Shadow Man 0. I want to say that Armorines series maybe even had one. They leaned into this hard. And if I'm not mistaken, I feel like way back when I read that Valiant actually had the exclusive rights to this Chromium for a little while. And the first one I remember not being at Valiant is it was the Reign of Superman book where like it kind of ended that story, and it just had like the front cover was Chromium, and then eventually Marvel would start doing it a lot and everything. But I want to say Valiant for a little while had like an exclusive use of this, probably for, maybe it was just for like the first 6 months or something of the year, but they definitely got their money's worth out of any exclusive deal, if that really existed. I didn't look it up to confirm that in this moment, but I seem to remember that. If somebody can correct me on that or confirm it, that would be awesome. Anyway, it does have a pretty cool wraparound Chromium cover by Joe Quesada. The stained glass really pops with this look. Quesada himself was like a budding star at this point. He'd done some Marvel work, had kind of moved over to Valiant pretty early on, though. He did do the Exo 0 issue as well, including the interiors, which he does on this book. And he'd been doing like a lot of Valiant covers at this point. So Valiant was kind of his, I don't want to say it was his coming out party, because he'd already kind of been building up as the star, but he obviously didn't have like an Image book to do, but he was doing a lot of Valiant stuff. And who was this written by? So the funny thing about this book is I've read through it a couple times, and the credits are not really listed anywhere except in the very back, and all you get is the colorist, letterer, and editor. But for the #2 ad, that's where you can see it. So it's Mike Moretti and Joe Quesada doing the art, and ink by Jimmy Palmiotti, who is, kind of Quesada's like go-to guy during this time period. So what is this book about? It's not the first appearance of Ninjak. That actually happened in Bloodshot, I believe #6. So the character had been around for a few months, at least before he got this ongoing series. But I remember this being a pretty big hit when it came out. People were pretty excited about it. And I think a lot of it has to do with the design by Quesada. He is a pretty cool looking character. You don't get a great shot of it. It's a cool picture of him, but you don't get a great shot of like what the costume really looks at. But he was a ninja, and ninjas are always cool. So, he's got that going for him. Quesada art, always a pleasure to look at. Starting with a nice establishing shot, you get this like foreshortening of this rope on the dock to this boat. There's essentially like an arms deal going on here, and it's a lot of yakety yak. Dialogue, I can't say the dialogue was great. I enjoy Quesada and the way he like lays out like panels. He's pretty good at story flow. There's some parts where I get a little confused as to what exactly is happening, But I think he has a good sequence here. So there's this arms deal going on. There's a double cross. This guy is double crossing this guy. And, they're selling these big like rocket launcher stingers. And, he's like, they told me not to mess with you. He's like, you should have listened. And this is a cool shot angle of him going for a gun and a holster. And it's not there. And it turns out this woman that's with him, she's taking his gun. And we also get the cat running away. Something to take note of, which I did not catch when I first went through it, but I came back to it, is this like squiggly area on her arm right there. It's an interesting detail, and it does come back. In fact, even here, he puts the little glisten on it to really make you take notice of it. So anyway, now she's got the gun to his head. And we're kind of following this cat at the same time. This cat's going up these boxes into the shadows right here. And you kind of get the first little glimpse of a little bit of his costume. The guy tries to tackle the woman. She turns and shoots him. The cat's looking up at somebody. So you're going back and forth here between the cat and what's going on down here. So he falls down dead. And then we kind of see more of Ninjak. He's got these goggles on. Now we know like for sure that he's there observing. And then she takes off and says she has a date with Colin King. Now, I don't recall in the Bloodshot books. I assume that it had already been established in those that Colin King is Ninjak. And he's kind of like a billionaire playboy in the mold of Bruce Wayne. But he's British, so there's a little bit of James Bond going on here too. This is kind of neat. He throws this little thing, and at first when I saw this, because it said like continuing investigation, I thought he was like throwing some little tracking thing or like listening device or something so he could leave. But he throws it and it hits the light switches. So the light switches go off. They realize that something's going on, that they're being ambushed themselves. Some nice, like, in the dark ninja action going on through there. Because of this chromium cover, this book is hard to keep open. This is an awesome shot. Still not really getting a great shot of his costume. We get the ninja mask. He's holding a sword, but like this is a cool picture. And Quesada was really into doing like this kind of intricate, like kind of lettering or just design flourish around books. Even to this day, he does that kind of stuff. So he lets this one guy live. He kind of lets him escape. His name's Sala, and he purposely kind of scares him off to jump in here. But now we come back up to the guy that was killed, that was double crossed, and he's got this thing in his hand, and it's this bracelet. And that's the bracelet that she was wearing. So when I saw that, I was like, what is that thing? I thought it was like a tiara or something. So then I went back. That's when I went back to those pages and I was like, oh, she's wearing it there. That's pretty cool. And then when I was making the video, I noticed the little gleam right there. So it's pretty good establishing there. It's not overbearing, but like it's included and it's established, and then we come back to it. Cut to the woman. Her name is Dominique, who was the double crosser, and she seems to almost be somewhat a leader of the group, or at least a like captain or whatever however you want to say it, of this like criminal organization going on. She's getting ready. She's singing Madonna's Material World. She notices her bracelet missing, and who shows up with it but her date, Colin King, who is Ninjak. And he's like, oh, I found it in the hallway. He's like, oh, we have a reservation at 11. She's like, no, let's just stay in. And they get it on. These guys are like the Sala and stuff. They're kind of like, if the assassin saw us, was observing us at the dock, they probably know about this woman, Dominique. So they're trying to call her, and they can't get a hold of her, so they just start heading to the hotel. Phone's ringing, and she wants to answer it, or maybe it's him trying to answer it, and she stops him from answering it. Anyway, so then he's like, they're done, and he's looking out the window, and she kind of makes a comment that he finishes too quick. She's like, are we already done? Look at his eye right there. So he's looking out the window, but he sees the car coming. Really, that's what it is. He knows they're coming and is looking out for him. So he immediately like calls her on it. Calls her on killing the dude. She's shocked that he knows about it. You know, he kind of throws her down and wants to know like all this information about what was going on with the everything he lists here. Maybe it was on this page. Maybe it's on the next page. Anyway, here it is. He wants to know about WebNet, Dr. Silk, and what's your connection. And she doesn't say anything blatantly here. Nice kind of movie sequence almost with the elevator closed. Bing. They're getting off the elevator and coming down the hall. And as they kick in the door, they see the sword and like what looks like the arms of Ninjak. So they just blast away. Blast away, falls out, and it was her. He like tied her up, covered her mouth, and they killed her. So this solid guy's like, oh man, we're in it deep with the big boss. And he's worried because he killed this Dominique woman. Technically killed her. But Ninja kind of set her up for that. Interesting sequence there of just kind of gives you, I mean, that's a total James Bond move. Has sex with the woman and then has her like, turns out like he knows the whole time that she's double crossing him. You know, he takes advantage of her and then sets her up to be killed to get her justice. Cut back to, I don't think it's even the next morning, but Colin King is reporting back to some agency that he's working with. Established this spider here that was kind of a weird establishment, at least in the initial read. And I was like, why is he playing with this spider? So as he's discussing it with this agency, and they're like kind of thankful for some of the information he's given, but there's some pushback here for some reason. And it wasn't clear to me why there was pushback, because it's like you're going back and forth with hearing what they're saying, and then it cuts here and you're just getting his side of the conversation. So he's transmitting over the information anyway. And then we get the kind of the breakdown of this Dr. Silk character, who's going to be the main villain, at least of this storyline, if not the whole Ninjak series. It basically just describes how he's this like old dude that was in like bioengineering and some sort, has a big corporate company that's got some web of, you know, espionage to take over control of all the world, I guess, you know. Anyway, and there's this other people are going to a meeting here, and the solid guy is even like explaining, kind of mocking this dude about potentially meeting Silk. He's like teasing him about it, saying like, oh, he only lures people in and shows himself when he's ready to strike, like those spiders he adores. And then we see like this boardroom and their logo is a big spider. If that's not a sinister logo for some company, I don't know what is. I mean, like, would you buy a computer or a like pharmaceutical or whatever from a company that had a logo like this? I mean, that just says like, we are a world terror organization. We want to have this like spider preying on the globe. But you know, this is also like early days of like the internet's just kind of being learned about. Like, I don't think we had it at my house. This is 93. So the internet's kind of like, it's being talked about. It's in the news, the web. There's the web, the World Wide Web. And so, you know, all these things had to have this kind of like spidery global network kind of iconography happening. This board meeting goes on. They kind of talk about how the double cross at the arms dealer at the beginning, and then you see the Dr. Silk's silhouette coming down the hallway, and they're like, oh god, it's him. And the solid guy who was teasing the other guy, now he's strapped into the chair. We get the reveal of this Dr. Silk guy, and he's just this like crumpled up looking old man that, you know, is just kind of like gross and eerie looking, and he has like some kind of thing holding one eyeball open. Quesada does this pretty good. I think when he does the Daredevil series and you see Mysterio, who, if I recall, he was like dying of cancer at the time and he had the oxygen tube and stuff on at the time. Quesada does that pretty well. He puts it in enough shadow and things to give it a really eerie feel. So I thought he did, even like the switching up of the angles of like you get the full shot of him in the wheelchair, and then you get him, from the top angle, like looking down. There's like gross teeth and stuff. So he has these spiders, which he says are black widows, but they're gigantic. Sprayed him down with some kind of thing that like set them off, and killed the solid guy, and then set his other minions off to go after the people that Ninjak was reporting to. I was kind of unclear as to how that broke down. How did they know to go after them? Maybe it was already in the plan. I don't know. That's the best shot of Ninjak's costume we've gotten the whole issue. You can really see it good there. And it took almost to the end of the issue to get it. That would be a story failing, I would say, on the book in general. Sometimes I think, especially in this time period and even today, where comics are so, like, people are always looking at what's coming out before it ever comes out. So you get a lot of this like promo material early on. So you already kind of know what things look like probably by the time they come out. I almost think that these creators at the time, or maybe even editorial at the time, took some of that for granted, that the reader was going to already kind of have an idea before they jumped into this #1 issue. And we had seen Ninjak's costume in the Bloodshot issues, but this is his #1 issue, and we should have been getting like nice establishing shots, because not everybody would have read Bloodshot earlier in the book. And while you do see him in costume, he's mostly shadowed. And even here, he's kind of shadowed, but you get a good look at it. You can tell he's got like kind of a tunic on, and then the purple coming out underneath. You get a good look at his like glove things there. It's a pretty cool costume and design in general. But Ninjak's there to save the other dudes, sort of. Most of them get killed. One of them starts running to escape. He gets shot, but he's still alive. Ninjak jumps in. Pretty awesome shot right here of him like kicking this dude's head into the car. They get in a car and start to escape. Pretty solid action here by Quesada again. Pulls out some size. If you were into Ninja Turtles, you knew what those weapons were already. Get a car chase going. Like right here, it looks like he's going to run over Ninjak, or try to run over Ninjak, but maybe he like swerves at the last minute. Or no, this is okay. See, this was unclear to me. So here's what's happening here. It was unclear when I read this. The guy that was shot is getting in this car while Ninjak fights this dude. So he comes over, so he's not coming to run him down, although Ninjak probably thinks that initially, but he swerves and throws the door open for Ninjak to get in. And he's like, King, get in. So he jumps in the car. You got this guy like a sniper watching, and another dude saying like, no, let them think they've escaped. So they start to drive away and realize they're actually trapped in the car, that it's been rigged somehow. He's trying to break the window, but it's bulletproof glass, and the car starts filling up with water. It didn't really like go off a pier or anything, did it? No. I don't know where this water is coming from, but it starts filling up with water, and he's like, black water. And it's filling up, and he's like, you got to save us somehow. And this is a terrifying shot to me. Fear of drowning is definitely something that's always gives me a sense of claustrophobia, being trapped in something with water rising like that when the ceiling is like just barely above you to get any air. And so now they're both underwater, and we leave in a cliffhanger. And as I pointed out earlier, this is where you actually get the credits. I don't know if that was an accident that they forgot to add the credits to the book, or if they just assumed this was enough. But I look at this as an ad. Blackwater concludes in the second issue. So it wasn't a long story. They didn't draw it out for more than 2 issues. And I don't remember how this ends. I probably got Ninjak for at least the first 4-ish issues back in the day, but I really don't remember how the story plays out in the end. Cool ad for Steve Rude. Magnus crossover there. But that's all I got for Ninjak #1. It's a pretty neat book. I liked it for the art more so than the storyline. The storyline it's okay if you're into like kind of a James Bond espionage type of story. But the Quesada art is really, for me, something to come revisit this book and check out. Other than that, that's all I got. Until next time, read your comics.